Okay.
Steve is pissed off right now.
Go ahead.
I'm David,
I'm Steve.
and we just got done watching episode 2 of Series 8 of Doctor Who, Into Darkness. What'd you think?
Into the Dalek.
Into the Dalek. Into Darkness is Star Trek.
Yes. But he does say that in the episode.
He does.
I thought it was good. I thought it was right up on par with the first episode.
Yeah.
I thought the character of the Doctor was more developed. I felt more like I kind of understood who he was better than I did in the first episode. And I really got a strong vibe, like his personality, of like what his personality is going to be now. And it feels like Sherlock Holmes to me. You know, he's not very empathetic or sympathetic. He's just kind of cold towards people, but he still like wants to do good things, which is very much like the character of Sherlock Holmes. You know what I mean?
It's like he cares in the macro sense, but not the micro sense.
Right. You know, like.
And he doesn't have any time for, small emotional things that get in the way. He's very practical. You know, if somebody needs to die, and there's nothing he can do about it, he's not going to waste any time crying about it. He's going to move on to try and accomplish the greater goal.
Which is a very stark contrast from the last several Doctors, where especially like Matt Smith, you know, where he would take a time out for like 5 minutes to console somebody.
Right.
And now he's just completely like, well, he was going to die anyways, so.
Yeah. For me, I didn't think the episode was quite as good as the first one. There were a few times during the episode where I was thinking, well, that just seems kind of silly, or, what does that mean? Like the whole, when they go into the Dalek stock and it's liquid, it's like, so is it liquid in the Dalek stock? What's going on there?
I got the impression that was like the force field they were passing through.
Oh, okay.
But
and then
that was kind of unclear.
Yeah. And then with the memory, turning the memory light bulbs back on, and the clever solution is Clara just slaps it and it does exactly what they need it to do.
Yeah.
I thought that seemed a little lazy, but overall, I did like the episode. I liked that we got to see the new Doctor as what appears to be the new Doctor, or how he's going to be. And I like the way that he is. I think he's funny in a really, wry, kind of dry way, and I appreciate that a lot. And I thought that, it was an interesting departure, like we just talked about, from the previous Doctors, in as much as how he deals with issues like death and the emotions of the people around him.
Yeah, and it definitely helps to create a new dynamic between him and the companion, and they kind of spell it right out in the episode when she says, "I'm his carer," and he's like, "That's right, she cares, so I don't have to," which is kind of what the whole dynamic is.
That was
now.
funny. Yeah. What did you think about the way they kind of jumped around? With the editing, especially in the beginning part of the episode, where they would just, for comic effect, I guess, or explanatory effect, just jump to a point like a little bit in the future and then go right back. I'm not sure how I felt about the way they were cutting that all together. Yeah, like, well, when Clara was essentially asking Danny out, and
the way that was cut together was kind of, it was a little different.
And they did the same thing with the Doctor with the Dalek for the first time, and then they go forward in time to him getting Clara, and then they go backwards in time to him interacting a little bit more with the Dalek.
Yeah, I think that was just the way that the script was probably put together, here's a suspenseful thing, now let's jump back. That's probably just down to the script writer more than anything else.
Right.
But tonally, the whole episode is definitely different tonally, just like the first episode, than what we've seen in past series.
Much more serious, and even though it was funny, I mean, it was still, I mean, the Doctor is just so intense and serious at points.
Right. What did you think of the Daleks, having them again? Did you think that they did a good job with them in this episode, or were they kind of stale, still like they've been for a while?
I mean, I really like the Daleks, so I was expecting a lot for when we're going to reboot them. I'm not sure that it met my, you know, expectations, whatever those might be. I can't put my thumb on it, but you know, they definitely did a Dalek story in a way they haven't done a Dalek story before, which is a feat, you know, for them to do at this point, having made how many Dalek stories since the early '60s.
Well, it's not the first time that they've done the good Dalek, because they
Mhm.
did that in series 1 of New Who. You
Right.
remember, if you remember that episode.
But yeah, it isn't the first time that the concepts come around, but they definitely explored it, you know, much more deeply this time,
Yeah.
literally and figuratively.
I'm personally, I'm not a very big fan of the Daleks.
Mhm. How can you not be a fan of the Daleks?
I think they're iconic in their design, and you know, they're cool looking and stuff, but the Dalek stories are never really that good. I don't think. I don't think they're very interesting villains. They're very one note, and I think this episode might have helped open them up to potentially being slightly deeper in some way. You know, like maybe there's
Yeah.
more to them than just
I thought that,
exterminate,
right.
exterminate. You know.
I thought that, but then I also thought, well, maybe they ruined the thing that people love about the Daleks, which is that, you know, they are the personification of evil and just destruction,
Yeah.
and now they're more like everyone else in the universe, maybe.
Well, I think that's part of my problem with the Daleks is that they're supposed to be the personification of evil and destruction and extermination,
Mhm.
and then you never really see them destroy anything. And at least in this episode, a lot of people got killed.
Well, the series 1 finale, the Daleks killed a lot of people
Yeah,
too.
yeah. But it's been a while, you know.
Yeah.
They've just kind of been cannon fodder for the Doctor, you know, to just have him blowing them up, you know, fleets at a time. They're just kind of
Right.
not really menacing or anything.
I mean, for me, I always thought of the Daleks as Doctor Who's Borg as the Star Trek, and then I kind of liked the fact that in this episode they had the whole "resistance is futile," you know, line
Yeah.
a few times, and I'm not sure if that was a Star Trek Easter egg or not, but it seemed to me
Well-
like it probably was. Someone couldn't have not been thinking about that when they
I'm
wrote
sure.
that line. Yeah.
But like the Borg started out like this massive menacing threat,
Hmm.
and then the more they were, especially
The
in
more the
Voyage-
Doctor beats them.
yeah,
Yeah.
like yeah, in Star Trek, the Borg eventually just kind of became, they weren't
Yeah.
threatening by the time they were in Voyager anymore. They just kind of,
Right.
and that's kind of how I feel about the Daleks. They just, but this episode, I think, did a reasonable job of making them a threat to the characters that were in this episode. You know, a lot of people died, and the stakes were high.
Yeah.
I think the Daleks work when they're used as a device to explore the Doctor's morality better than when they're used as, you know, a foe,
Mhm.
just a straight up foe
Yeah.
or threat for the episode. And that's why I think this episode worked, and why that season 1 episode works so well is.
Right. Like I think of, you know, in my mind when I think of David Tennant's character, I think of how filled with rage he is at, you know, the Daleks and whatever was going on in those episodes. And so I agree that the best episodes for the Daleks are they're really episodes about the Doctor and his past and his issues dealing with anger and revenge and
Right.
bitterness over the past.
Yeah, and on the surface, this episode was, can Daleks be good? But really, it was exploring whether or not the Doctor is good and questioning his morality and
Right.
his
And as dark as-
his drive for genocide against the Daleks, which
Right.
I've always kind of questioned, and it's nice to see them
Yeah.
approach that again.
And as dark as this Doctor is compared to the other ones, he had a less rage-filled reaction than I think a lot of the previous, you know, Doctors
Yeah.
have had.
Yeah, even Matt Smith, when he picks up that pipe and starts beating him, and he's
Right.
like, "You are a Dalek," you know.
Exactly. Yeah, he seems much more stoic.
He seems less emotionally driven, just
Yeah.
overall, and more driven
Detached.
by the sense of adventure or science or exploration than anything
Yeah,
else.
like he was very curious about the idea of a good Dalek. Christopher Eccleston's Doctor was just angry and thought the whole idea was just stupid and ridiculous.
Right. And that's where I see a lot of the parallels between him and Sherlock Holmes. He's willing to, like in the first episode of Sherlock, he's willing to sacrifice his life to prove his intelligence. And this doctor kind of feels like he'd be willing to do the same thing to just kind of prove a point.
Right. And in Sherlock, his companion Watson serves as his conscience, just like Clara and whoever the next companion
in
will
that
be
scene
also.
when she slaps him,
Yeah.
she's basically saying, you're going to get us all killed just so you could prove this Dalek is evil.
And he responds to that. He's like, okay, you set me straight.
Right.
Now I'm going to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So I guess one of the things I wanted to ask you about was the whole chalkboard thing in the TARDIS with the calculations all over it. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
And it was the same pretty much calculations that he had written on the floor in the first episode. I wonder if that's going to be the kind of thing that after we finish with the series and you go back and watch it again, we're going to know exactly what that is.
Like a bad wolf.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, potentially. I have no idea what it could possibly be at this point.
Me either. I mean, do you have any Missy theories? Because, I mean, that's the other question is, so we got to see Missy again, but in the same kind of mysterious, we still have no idea who she is way. And I've been kind of staying away from the spoilers. I've heard that there are images online that pretty much kind of spoil the season finale, or maybe not totally spoil it, but give you a pretty good idea of what's going on. I've been staying away from it, so I still have no idea who Missy is.
No, I have no idea. I
mean,
I've
obviously some people think she's the Master. Some people think she might be a TARDIS.
I've heard some people even say River Song. That doesn't make sense to me.
That doesn't make sense to me either.
But it's strange because in the first episode, you see a villain in heaven, and now you see a good person in heaven.
Right.
So in the first episode,
a redeemed villain, though, sort of.
Yeah, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
So how did they get there? I've been trying to scratch my head over it because there has to be some kind of sci-fi explanation for how could somebody die and then instantly be in this other place with this woman, whoever she is.
Right. And I've seen people make that connection between the garden is obviously the same set as the one that was used when Amy Pond was in the hospital there. And so the question is that actually where they're going, or is it just a coincidence that they happen to be using that set? Who knows?
Yeah, it's too early to say. Yeah. It's really, they haven't given enough information.
Right. But it seems like he's definitely going to be dragging out the whole, Stephen Moffat's going to be dragging out the whole who is Missy question throughout a little bit more of the series. And I'm going to be, on the edge of my seat waiting to find out who the heck is she and how does she fit into the overall story.
And is she a villain?
Is she a villain? Is she someone that the Doctor knows from his past, or is she someone completely new?
Or somebody from his future?
Or someone from his future.
Because she says in the first episode...
Maybe she's another Time Lord, who knows?
She says, my boyfriend.
Right.
So what could that mean? And I think that's where some of the River Song guesses have come from. But
and I think that's where some of the TARDIS guesses, too, come from, because when the TARDIS was personified, she had that kind of... she seemed to think that she had that amorous connection with him.
Yeah.
I don't think she's the TARDIS, but
no.
I can see why people are thinking what they're thinking. I mean, and Moffat's pretty much said the Master's not coming back. But maybe by that he means the Master is now the Mistress, and Moffat lies.
Moffat lies.
Right.
Yeah. He said. I
He
believe he
said
also
that Davies did such a good job with the Master that he didn't feel like he needed to touch it.
Yeah. And it's good to let things rest for a while, too, before you keep going back to the same one.
Right. And it has been a while.
Yeah.
I mean, and the Master is pretty much, you made the Sherlock reference, he's the Doctor's Moriarty.
Right.
So it's hard to believe that at some point he's not going to come back, or she.
Yeah, I think it would definitely be interesting to see the new dynamic play out with the new Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of Clara's new love interest?
I don't think we saw Danny enough to really draw any conclusions about whether or not he's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Or if he's going to be another Mickey. Who knows?
I liked Mickey.
I liked Mickey too. Poor Mickey. Yeah. But I think that he's probably, assuming Clara's not coming back next series, he probably will be coming back. So I'm interested to see how they develop his character and
So you think he's going to replace her?
I don't know if he'll replace her, but there might be some continuity between the two. You know, I think that
Yeah, I think if
they'll
she's
want some continuity.
if she's not coming back, then he might be the reason that she leaves.
You know, or something bad could happen to her.
Yeah.
I mean, something could happen with this Missy character. Who knows? I kind of like it when, you know, bad things happen to the companions at the end of their run. Not terrible, but you know, the whole Rose thing. I think they did a really good job.
Yeah, and then they had to ruin it later on.
Yeah.
They couldn't just leave well enough alone.
I mean, people will debate that, but they definitely weren't afraid of doing bold things with the characters. They don't all have to have happy endings. Donna Noble.
But none of them
Sort
have
of.
happy endings. So maybe we deserve at least one happy
Well,
ending.
Sarah Jane Smith got her own show.
Yeah, but that was how many years later?
Yeah.
Did you want to rate it? Are we doing ratings? What did you say last time? You gave it like a...
I mean, I gave it an A- last time, so I think maybe this time I would give it, you know, a solid B for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd probably give it a... I'd give it a B plus to an A because it utilized the Daleks in an interesting way, which we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And so I have to give it extra credit for that.
Well, we're going to be back next week after we watch episode 3. And in the meantime, we might have another review for you this week if we go see the Ghostbusters movie.
Yeah, we'll probably have that up sometime later this week. So until then...
Thanks for watching.